Talk about this, taxation, because we keep reading these. We've got a budget next month, the sort of the Christmas Eve budget almost. Pre-Christmas budget. Rachel Reeves is obviously going to have to kind of fiddle around with the books somehow. You never have a budget, do you? Has there ever been a budget where the Chancellor came to the dispatch box and said, we've got so much money, well, we don't raise anything? It's kind of weird. It almost feels like a bit of a trick that every year they come to the dispatch box for a budget and they explain what is going up. Very rarely why does stuff have to go up? I mean, I know that's a basic economics question, but you take the point. It'd be nice to go, you know, we don't need a budget this year. Everything's good. We've got the money, nothing needs to go up in price, few things will come down. Don't need a big fat budget with 500 civil servants working on it. But what we know is we're absolutely royally broke. I mean, we are so fiscally stuffed. In any other world, it would be laughable. This is very serious. It's people's lives we are talking about here. And in order to fill that big old black hole, 22 billion, 32, 52, whichever figure you pick, these are jaw-dropping telephone number-like figures. And this is what they've got to address. And it looks as if they're going for the good old socialist bullseye on this one. Tax the rich in some shape or form. We are hearing noises of something called targeted action to deal with the cost of living crisis. We know the Chancellor has said it was the job of both the government and the Bank of England to reduce inflation. We know that. We also know that the government could intervene to bring down energy bills with things like get rid of the 5% rate of VAT. I mean, it doesn't really touch the sides, but, you know, every little helps and stuff. But we know that the Chancellor has also signalled that she's kind of ready to target tax rises on assets rather than earnings in the budget. It's a war on wealth. There's no doubt about that. And every single time, it's the obvious one to go to. We need to raise some money. Where do we go? Obviously, you don't go to people at the lowest financial end of the spectrum because there is no money there. In the middle, it's pretty tight. We'll just go for the rich. Now, there's some obvious fundamental problems with it. I think we can all see it writ large, the fundamental problems. What do you do the next year when there's still a big black hole and the black hole has got bigger? Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll go to the rich people. That's a good idea. And the year after that, if you're going through a sort of 3 or 4 year downward spiral financially, you go for the rich again. And it sounds like, I mean, you can see the seductive nature of this. If you tax the rich, I mean the real rich, not people who have, done really well and are earning good money, but I mean a bit more. If you do, they're not going to starve. That's the point, right? They're not going to starve. There's already money in reserve. But that's not the principle that's at stake here. The principle is, what kind of world do we want to live in? Where should we be on the kind of financial journey of our times at this point in the 21st century? We shouldn't be in a place where we have a government that you have to give 50% of your money to. I mean, that is... It's interesting how left-wingers don't see this. It's criminal. It's beyond an outrage that you work for your business, for your family, and you give half of your money to the government. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable that should be the case. There's nothing moral about that. And that's where the kind of left-wing arguments sort of fall down. They believe that it's a moral thing to do, to take money from those people and give it to other people or give it to the system, etc. The aim of the game should always be, you've got to get those taxes down, you've got to get spending under control, you've got to get realistic with what you can do in terms of the budget you have, etc. So if I ask the question, where should the money come from? Where or what would you tax? Where or what would you cut in terms of spending? 0344 499 1000. And one of the problems with the short-term nature of our system is that we sort of plan for the year ahead. You know, it's like, well, OK, if we cut this from welfare, that'll save us 5 billion, but it doesn't stop the increase, it just stops the rate of increase. There's still going to be an increase. So we don't sort of systematically deal with it, the real nuts and bolts, a complete change in the system. 0344 499 1000. Where or what do we tax, or where or what do we cut, if that's the other way to look at it. 0344 499 1000. Lots of comments, by the way, coming through on what is happening in the football world. We'll take a call here, can't we? Let's go to Caroline. We'll go to Caroline down in London straight away on this very issue. Caroline, what have you got for us? Good afternoon to
Thanks. Good afternoon. Lovely to speak to you, Ian, as always.
Too.
A question. What is the difference between this, as in banning Jews going to a football match in the UK to 1933 in Germany, when Jews were banned from parks, schools, libraries, whatever? There is no difference. And what's next? And don't think that the British who are not Jewish aren't going to be affected. This is very, very serious. This is not about a football match. This is banning Jews from a football match because they're scared of what's going to happen. And what is going to happen? The imams are going to get together and create hatred, just like in Holland, and they're going to come on the streets and cause the disruption.
Yeah.
And no one in the political arena is going to mention the word Islamist. Like Alex said this morning, no government is saying the word Islamist. A man called Jihad, who went to a synagogue to kill, no one's even calling that out. Will I get a prison? Will I get the police at my door if I put that on Twitter? This is what's going on. We are in 1933 Germany, and people need to wake up, and we need to do something now. We haven't got 3 years till the next election. This is really, really serious. So my question is, what's the difference between now and 1933?
Well, I tell you what, if nothing else, the optics are spookily similar. Caroline, you make a very powerful point to start off with. Thank you very much indeed for that. And Chris on this point says, let's just say it as it is. The banning of Israelis or Jewish supporters at the Villa match is a blatant act of anti-Semitism, actioned and supported by a pro-Gaza independent MP with an axe to grind regarding the war against Hamas post-October 7th, 23. In a Muslim-majority area. And worse, it's state-sanctioned anti-Semitism. It's yet another example of fundamentalist Islam in action. Well, the one thing we can say, and you can argue how sincere you feel this is that the Prime Minister is angered by this decision and has promised to do everything in his power to ensure all fans can go to the match. His deputy spokesperson said, of course it is an operational decision. The government is perfectly entitled to speak out on issues of principle and fairness. You see, we don't get that enough, do we? We've talked about this so many times as to why the government aren't able to, you want to hear the Prime Minister stand up and go, sorry, this isn't allowed to happen. This is not allowed to happen. I keep thinking back to that press conference at the time that was held in either a community centre or a mosque when a kid had scuffed a Quran. And you had an imam there, you had a councillor, you had the kid's mum, you had a chief of police. It was like a flipping Sharia court. And the Prime Minister of the day, was that Johnson or was it Sunak, should have stood up and said, that is never going to happen again in my country. It was an outrage. But we don't hear that from politicians. We'll talk to Michael in just a second. Lots to get through. Reem Ibrahim joins us as well, Communications Manager at the IEA. Good afternoon to you, Reem.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you, Ian?
Good as gold at this end. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Before we get back to that incredible story about banning Jewish football fans, which is more than a little disturbing, can I just get a word from you as well on Rachel Reeves? And before we come to which will always be a very thorough response and always highly listenable, I know, Reem, when you procrastinate on these things, let's just hear a little bit of Rachel Reeves, our Chancellor, in action. Here she is.
I'm really clear. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes. And that is why, at this budget, we did wipe the slate clean.
What the budget in October did was draw a line under the economic and financial mismanagement of the Conservative government. I've now put our public finances in order, so never again will I have to do a budget like I did in October. Our public finances are now on a firm footing. We have now set the public spending envelope for this Parliament. Parliament. We don't need to come back and ask for more. We've now set that. We're going to do a zero-based review to make sure we get value for money for every pound that taxpayers' money spent. In that budget, I've tried to fix the foundations and wipe the slate clean.
But it's so 1.3% year after next, for example. And that implies, doesn't it, that you're going to have to come back and ask for yet more tax rises?
Absolutely not. We have now set the envelope of spending for this Parliament and we're going to live within our means.
Set the envelope of spending. We will live within our means. We've wiped the slate clean. There you go, Reem. That is fiscal authority in action, if you like.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because the entire narrative has been we're not going to increase taxes on working people, whatever working people actually are. And now we know that they are absolutely going to be targeting working people. I mean, the increase in employees' national insurance contributions were just one example of that, where the government made it more expensive to hire people, and therefore we saw a decline in vacancies. Now, there are millions of businesses across the country that are suffering as a result of that tax increase, but there is no way the government can get out of this. We are spending more than we can afford, and therefore the government are absolutely going to have to increase taxes this year. And look, Rachel Reeves, for all of her sort of political cleverness, is going to have to go back on all of those promises that she has made. It's very, very clear that we're now probably going to see an increase in taxes on what they called working people. Very likely is going to be an increase in perhaps income tax, or indeed we may see the sort of wealth tax that a lot of the Greens are talking about. Very likely going to be something that is very, very economically damaging. Now, the problem is we are spending far more than we can afford. And at the moment, we need to think about how we can reduce public spending. When the government tried to reduce public spending earlier this year, they failed because the backbenchers of the Labour government, the backbenchers of the Labour Party, did not want reductions in welfare payments, despite the fact that personal independence payments are being paid to people that absolutely do not have physical disabilities and do not need it. So we're in a very, very difficult situation, I think, Ian, and it's going to look like that for the future, I suppose. And if we do not reduce public spending this year, we're going to see increases in tax this year and next year and the year after.
And where does it come from, Reem?
I mean, because actually do something about
we can all be a sort of armchair chancellor, I suppose, and it's no, but it's a bit like asking people what should when people say, why are you not covering this news story, or it's like, well, if you played that game, you'd be covering 10,000 news stories every moment, because everyone's got their own idea of what is important. And similarly with this. One person might say, well, cut money from this department. Another person will say, no, you've got to ring fence that department. Where are the sort of sweet spots, if you like, where it would be reasonable to say we've got to slash the socks off this spending or increase this tax?
Yeah, so I think welfare payments are part of that. I mean, we're spending just over 10% of total government spending on welfare. We're also spending about the same amount on debt interest payments, so paying interest on the government's debt, which is absolutely insane. So, every 10 pence in the pound that you pay in tax goes on government debt. I mean, that's how expensive current public spending levels actually are. And when we're thinking about this from a wider perspective, a lot of people, I think, are very angry about how restrictionist that the government are being on how they're looking at this from the future. And I think they're absolutely right to be. I mean, look, we're thinking about things like immigration and the amount of money we're spending on various other elements of public spending. But what is really quite damaging, or what is really quite expensive, is welfare and also old age pensions currently facing. And that's really where we're sort of going to look to make some kind of cuts in the future. I mean, I personally think that the pension system, the state pension, should be means tested. There's no reason for it to be universal, but I know that opinion will make me very unpopular. But look, I mean, we're looking at this from a wider perspective. Does Lord Alan Sugar need a state pension? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's having trouble these days. He might need an extra few quid. Good old Al. We'll watch with interest. Reem,